Good morning.
Good morning.
Episode 36. We are going to be talking today about rethinking.
Rethinking
Thinking.
anything?
I'm thinking what we have to talk about when it comes to rethinking. What are your thoughts? Anything recently that has come to your mind which reflects on the concept of rethinking?
Uh, a couple of weeks, a couple of days back, and I was telling about the book I was reading, right? The future of anything, the future thinking. That's what struck my mind when we talked about rethinking. In fact, we could think of just about anything.
Hmm.
My child has gone to school now, so we could talk about education
Okay.
and see how things will change, or or how things should change, probably. In the days going forward. Um, Now, what do you think? Do you want to rethink?
Because I was having a conversation with a coaching client yesterday, a girl, and she was talking about how we make this. I asked her to come with a question, and she said, "How are we supposed to make our decisions or do things when we don't want to do them?" And I asked, "Where is this coming from?" And eventually, the conversation led down the path of where she didn't want to continue her education in
Mm,
the school that she was in because she was actually studying in a CBSE, and they don't go deep into the subjects. They don't really have discussions. They don't really assess. They don't really create. Uh, and it's frustrating her because of the way the education system is. Because teachers just come, they just throw the content on the students, and that's it. There is no real. There's so many concepts for her. She feels is not really juiced out, and therefore she wanted to move into an IB curriculum, whatever it is. But she says she's fearful, and asked, "What is the fear? Where is it coming from?" And then it went down the concept of where uh, will it be? And she was fearful about the future. She was fearful about uncertainty. She was fearful about how things will turn out. Long story short, it, coaching is always an exercise in rethinking, correct? Coaching is
mm.
always a conversation about how you rethink your present scenarios and your past scenarios and create a future scenario that is empowering and enabling for you. So, when it comes to education, everything is going to change, I feel. And one of the things that I feel a lot of institutions are not doing right now is not reimagining education.
They are, in fact, and the thing that we are probably not very happy about is they are not reimagining education at the speed at which the world is changing. So, if I if I can just recount one experience, uh, probably when I was like 14 years old or younger, I used to ask my mom to bring, the chemical apparatus, the test tubes and beakers and stuff like that. And she used, and there was a shop next to her workplace, so she used to buy and bring. I used to experiment with that, making hydrogen gas, this, that. And I used to wonder, like, if you didn't have access to that. Now, in my generation, I could access, the equipments, right? And later we were experimenting with the chalk, electronic chalk of tube lights, and some simple circuits and things like that. And the generation before me probably didn't have access to that, and
Hmm.
the generation after me had much more access to the breadboards and readily you know ready-made circuits and things like that. And now they have access to online internet. So it is changing. There is a definite change in the way we learn things.
Yeah.
Um, what we don't see is what we see is that no, probably the world is moving even faster, and when we really think about that next thing in the education, there are people who are catching up to that, and that there are people who got that inertia. They cannot easily move because of various reasons. It could be their the investments that they have to make into those setup, or it could be the mindset.
True. And I think I'm just thinking over here, who is not changing? And probably it is what I was referring to is the CBSE curriculum per se. It's not individual schools because that is what they're imposing on how it has to come from there, no? Uh, because each curriculum has a different approach. Now, there is
Well,
something interesting that happened yesterday also. When I was having this conversation, I was talking about how in one of the schools I went, I was invigilator and I was having an inspection of how the classroom setup is done, and how things are taught. And there were about 5 tables around the classroom, and students were placed around the seats, around the tables, and they were having discussions and conversations. And how 45 minutes went by was a zip because there was a lot of conversation happening around the lesson of the day.
mhm.
So there was a lot of interaction, there was a lot of discussion, and the learning was getting much more deeper, I feel. I thought that is a beautiful approach. So I said, "Does this happen in your school?" And her response was, "No, it doesn't usually happen. It only happens when someone comes for inspection." And I was like, "What?" So to showcase, sometimes people do things and otherwise they don't. But uh, I would take back what I said in the sense that it is not happening. What I meant, or to rephrase it, I would say maybe a lot of schools or the education is looking for a proven model that really works. They're looking for a system before they experiment. They want somebody else to experiment. They want somebody else to take that first step, and they want somebody else to show results. Even though in places like Finland, where they have completely reimagined education and the way that they have is proven to be more effective in countries like Finland, where they have this kind of immersive experience in terms of learning. Uh, the rate at which it is coming to this part is taking years, or we have to see how we can accelerate the process. But do you think parents have a role in it too?
Yeah, we do have. More than that, one thing that I was thinking when you're talking about this, if we the teachers are also under pressure, right? They need to finish that curriculum, right? So you don't get time to engage in conversations because you need to dispense the things that are to be done within that 1 year. So what I was like really thinking is that we need to, if teachers don't have that burden of finishing the curriculum, and recently I was thinking, if there's a mix between what we see it as digital learning and in-person learning, or on-site learning, what we call these days. Um, the mix should be that the responsibility of finishing the curriculum should be converted into a digital space where the students can take it at their space, and maybe that in-person learning, or rather going to school, should be to develop social skills, talk, work with teachers, engage in conversations and things like that. And that is a possibility to it wasn't probably it wasn't a possibility 2 years back, because we did not invest in digital communications, digital media, or online tools. But since you're forced into it right now, that opportunity has really opened up. Now the thing is that now the mindset has to change. Can we increase communications in the school and move that curriculum, because it has to be done, because that is how the whole, I would say that the whole education system is designed all over the place, because you need to do certain things, qualify certain things to be ready for the world. Now, coming to the parents question, yes, if we do this, if we do this, then the responsibility isn't shared. But do all parents want to do that? I doubt, because they are not, they are actually transferring the responsibility of education to the school most of the times. You know, school is a way to get the job done of teaching their children. uh, while they do have a responsibility, I do not think that everyone will do at the same level of quality or commitment, and so that's why the schools still have a bigger role to play. And if the parent is doing good, it's good for the child, and that's kind of our individual responsibility, I would say.
Yeah, interesting. And I have seen a model which is very similar to what you're talking about on an online program that I'm part of, and I like the structure a lot. What he's done is he's grown slowly. The way that he has grown, he is someone who teaches online digital learning and all that stuff. So what he did was he started off by interviewing and speaking to around 200 people who wanted to create online courses, and then he started doing group programs. In 2019, 2020, it exploded. The whole world, everyone wanted to teach digital learning, uh, how to learn any concept. And he was someone who was teaching how to teach digital learning, how to create your courses, how to create your programs, etc. So he started off with that. Today he's reached, and then he created so many results, meaning he created many people who actually brought in revenue and completed the courses and set up. Now his program is like this. The structure is very similar to what you said, where he has all the learning pieces as recorded videos.
Yeah,
All the learning pieces as recorded videos that is there in. These are the fundamentals. These are the pillars that you got to watch the videos and you have to count. Now a lot of people don't do that also. So what he's done now is the recorded pieces are there. You can learn at your pace, but he runs 3 hackathons a year. So from Jan, Feb, March, April, he's got like one hackathon. So hackathon one starts and everyone joins that. And when you join that, you come under one leader who has already completed his program, who has already created success. And that leader has 50 people that he is managing.
yeah,
Like this, there are like so in his tribe now, every hackathon there are like thousands of people who join in for the hackathons. And at the end of the hackathon, you should have done A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. There will be criteria. And if you have done all of those things, then what happens? You get certified and you get declared as a winner, and you join this particular club, and whatever you get the recognition on his this thing like a badge. And then if you earn a crore, then you join the crore club. And then what happens is you become part of that community and you get that recognition. And then you become one of the mentors and leaders for the coming groups. So it's built a community of leaders, teachers, facilitators, and achievers all coming in together. And each one gets a different badge on the platform. And he has a team that is actually, and all of these, many of these people are volunteers. They're not even paid, and they do the work and they help and support other people because of how he is always constantly giving and contributing. You take all these pieces and then you put it into the education system. I think it will be a brilliant model where when you become a facilitator or a mentor to the class that is below you, and you have someone who's supervising you, and you have a community that gives you feedback, then whatever you learned gets deepened,
yeah.
right? And
It is.
therefore, and for the facilitator, that is the biggest advantage that their learnings are becoming more stronger.
Yeah, that is that was the the style in Gurukul also, right? Because all the students will help and support the younger ones, while the guru tends to give gentle directions towards how things should be learned, practiced, and they live in a kind of ecosystem. I believe there are some good things to be taken from that model, where what do I say, like augmented or empowered or enhanced with the technology.
Hmm.
Now part of the guru's job is taken by technology as well. Who knows? At some point in time in future, these kind of rote learning will be like programmed into our head through some
Hmm.
neuralink or something like that. So then
Yeah.
the real education becomes the question of application. It is not the question of theory, you know, and it becomes how we communicate, how we interact, how we work together, and that's yeah, that's definitely. I think that's probably one of the key things that has to be taken into account in an education system in these days, or even going forward.
That's one thing that is, I think, not there at all. Until you finish 12, the only way that you're applying is in exams, where you're applying
You know,
your.
you know, something interesting that struck me just now. One of the reasons why we are doing this is because the previous generation is carrying the legacy. We've been taught this way. We need to make sure that the 12th marks are good. So whether it be policymakers, the thinkers in the education, parents, teachers, we are all carrying our own legacy and baggages. And uh, and I would say that even the children actually wiggle out of it, and then we kind of adapt to it. And that's like a reactionary thinking towards changes in education. Uh, what we really want is someone who would probably walk that 10 years ahead, look back, and then see that yeah, things have changed. Let me just remove the baggage from our mind, you know and see how things could work. And it requires a lot of courageous schools and parents to make this work, I would say.
So the school where I'm a governor at, and this is one of the proposals that I had made at the school to the principal. We're still in discussion mode over here in terms of implementation. Uh, this last week I made this proposal. Actually, I had suggested that every child be responsible for the well-being of another child in a junior class, one junior class. So every child has a responsibility of taking care of the well-being of another kid. If he's in fifth, then somebody of fourth. If somebody is in fourth, then somebody of third. If somebody of second, then somebody of first. Right from a very young age, what happens is they start being responsible, and it's not impossible because they do it at home for their siblings, younger ones, right? Now the challenge is they're saying there are so many challenges to it. I said, yes, there will be challenges. You got to figure out how to put a structure in place so that from a very young age they start having the feeling of empathy and caring and responsibility for another person. Somebody who is in 12th will have someone who is a immediate outgoing student become the mentor. It's not that they have to meet every day. It's not that they have to, but they have to be in touch, and they have someone that they can speak to and someone who will listen to them. And we'll have to train them on these qualities and skills: how to listen, how to engage, how to support, how to, and if you don't know the answer, how not to behave as if you know all the answers, even when you don't know. You just have to be there, listen, and then reach out to someone who is older than you for answers, maybe, and then come back and give it back.
Yeah, yeah, there would be challenges. Ideally, things should work, but the world is not ideal. And
Absolutely.
to figure out how such things can be operationalized, that's what probably it has to. I mean, such an idea has to go through. I would say that, yeah, in fact, that's what we were talking about, right? This is exactly what the curriculum system was
Yeah,
in many.
exactly. So it struck me, that's why when you spoke about that, and something that I had said, I was it was there, it was a good thing. Why did they remove that? What is working? Why did they remove something that is brilliant in operation?
Yeah. So and that's where we have to really look at what are the constraints that they are facing today, what we are facing today, not to make this happen. So one of the constraints is the 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 urge and the need to finish the curriculum, right? And that has to be delivered in a class, and that is a fundamental thing that should be questioned. Do I have to deliver every single portion in the class? Can children, learn it themselves? And I remember, during our engineering days, there are times when we would go slowly, and towards the end, it'll be like a cram to finish up the chapters. Who
You
cares about
remember which professor? Which one? I particularly remember one professor. I don't remember anything that he taught, but at the same time, I remember how much I enjoyed his classes.
whether
Geology,
that's a good thing or not?
geology, because he was not talking about chapters. He was not talking about curriculum. He was talking about life experiences all the time.
Hmm.
You remember? And
Yeah.
the whole semester went by, and I think last 4 5 sessions he just started dictating a few notes and all that stuff just to make sure that he did something of his job. But otherwise, he would just go on sharing so much of his life stories and his travels and how geology played a part in that. I remember he was always plugging in the
Hmm.
element of how geology was applied for him in his life and where he was going, what research he was doing. He was one of those wise people I feel in our group who wasn't there to lecture, who wasn't there to. He also came across as someone who came into the class and then decided what he's going to talk about. He didn't have a predetermined mindset. His way of teaching, anyone I think who would spend enough time around him would become a very wise person. I feel. I don't know. Do you remember his name? The
Not
geology
a
professor.
I
I'm
even.
embarrassed. Yeah, I forgot his name. He's very nice, very sharply dressed. He used to always be very presentable. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, he just taught us for one semester. Yes, so it's about being open, I guess, once again. Being open to new possibilities, being open to uh, creating new things and seeing what is a baggage that you're holding, like you said, because of which you're operating in our present model.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, principals and teachers they hesitate to take a new step because they already have so much on the plate most of the time. And then if they start a new initiative, how are they going to be answerable to the parents if something goes wrong?
What went to the board? Sometimes the school is termed as a business.
Yeah, yeah. So how do they get all the pieces of the puzzle correct?
So there is this concept called edtech. These days everything is attached with techs, right? So there's marketing tech, martech, edtech, fintech, insurtech, retail tech, legal tech, whatever tech that we have. These techs are supposed to bring in changes. Now, the interesting thing that I have noticed is that um, when we create a technology, we create with certain assumptions, certain patterns and workflows. Uh, Once a technology is created, it is up to the users to use it the way they want it.
Hmm.
Now, if you don't conform to the patterns with which the product is imagined, you get a subpar experience. Maybe you might even waste that money spending on the technology. So that's extremely important because this is we have a huge propensity towards adopting technology.
Hmm.
But when we adopt technology, the question should be that are we fundamentally changing or aligning with what the technology is intended for?
Hmm.
If not, we might have technology, we might have our ways of working, and we'll finally dismiss that this online stuff is not working out. How should it work? It should work as not necessarily as a, so if you go to a class, the teacher stands there and then say that let's look at the online page and then do stuff. Then essentially instead of writing the paper, it becomes typing into the online systems, right? So what happens is you don't change the behavior.
Hmm.
All that you did is you change the medium, from paper to tablet.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not exactly what the technology was meant for. The technology was meant to decouple the learning experience from a synchronous in class in person mode into an offline asynchronous on demand, the way that we want to experience, the speed at which we want to experience. And if we don't understand and push that into parents' minds, into children's mind, into teachers' mind, what happens is, it just simply replaces pen and paper. And that's where, the what I said earlier, that the technology comes with certain features and assumptions and constraints sometimes, and we just pressed it to fit it the way we used to experience pen and paper.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, let's think about it, because the more we understand these kind of aspects, then it becomes very easy for us to see, okay, what are the possibilities ahead of us.
A very interesting thought that came to my mind. You just earlier said parents feel it's a school's responsibility or action or job to be done to take care of the child's education. But we know that parents play a huge role in the journey, in the evolution, in the facilitation, not necessarily in the theoretical concepts of what they're learning in school, but there is a role that the parent has to play. So imagine if at the beginning of the school itself, right from day one, not every day, but the whole society and everyone has to come in together for this piece. What I'm thinking of here, what I'm rethinking, or reimagining education should look like, where parents are also enrolled along with the child into the school, and they have to complete certain number of tasks. They have to attend certain number of sessions or classes in the school, uh, not along with the child necessarily, but they also have to go through a learning process of something. Maybe it is a facilitation technique, maybe it is something else, maybe it is group discussions, maybe it is something that they have to do as a project, etc. And if the parents don't complete those tasks, the child doesn't go to the next grade.
No, not like that. The child
Okay.
doesn't get points. You're making it like too extreme.
So it means everybody has to go together. It can't be that it becomes the responsibility of that school to take care of everything about the child, but also I don't know what the piece is. But if it is a piece that can be designed where it makes meaning and sense for them as a family, as a unit, uh, then then what happens is uh, they learn certain skill sets, they put into practice certain things, but also at the same time the child has a sense of a different kind of sense that is emerging when they are going through the education system. So I think in Finland, and I've seen this somewhere in Estonia where the Mind Valley system also they do it. They have a program where they bring the parent and the child for a month. So parents, if they're working, they take a break off and they go for a month. And for a month, the child and the parent are a part of a program. They experience the program together. There is different things that they have to do. There are things. So it's not a completely original idea. It's an idea that has been picked up from elements from there. So then what
Yeah.
happens is when they go back home after that experience, they're a family that is transformed in their thinking. They're a family that is transformed in the way that they actually do things together. They learn things together and they understand the application of these things in a different mindset. The learning experience or journey, and I think it's the learning journey that we're discussing more over here, right?
Mhm. But again, consider this is an ideal scenario, right? But the world is not ideal. So there are parents who are working, in shifts, or there are parents who are working on multiple jobs. So if you really have to give an, equitable opportunity for the children to learn, this is something good to have. It should not be something that is must to have. The reason being, every parent and every context, every home is very different, and school is a kind of level playing game, level playing field for most of the children. And And this could create again disparities or inequalities. I would say that, yeah, this is good to have. Certain parents will do it even without being asked. Certain parents need to be like encouraged, and other people will not, simply will not. So or cannot.
So that's what
So
I'm saying. It has to be in the program, and only those kind of parents will join the program or school. They will not be part of the school. So it cannot start from a school that already exists. Maybe it has to be a school that has to be created newly, and it has to be an experimental school in terms of how they do things, everything. There's a lot of students. There are a lot of students and parents actually that are going through homeschooling, for example. It could be this bunch of parents, who are actually already doing homeschooling, where they get to experience this firsthand and see what works.
could be, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
think
how you would have imagined the education to be different if you could retake the whole school system once again?
if it is an education system, number one, uh, I wouldn't put emphasis on memory or information recollection. It would be memory application, or in terms of, like you said, it's not retention, it is application that is more important. And then we would try to figure out new ways and make the education system more project based, number one. Number two, not make it like a game where there is no class structure. There's no classes. There's no first standard, second standard, third standard. First of all, we completely remove the idea or concept of having something called first, second, third, fourth grade, whatever. You have the concept of where you come in. You have learning pieces. You finish the learning pieces. You can move to the next piece. You finish the piece just like in a game, levels. So you finish the next piece. You can move to the next piece. In each subject that you choose, you can have all these pieces, and then you just upgrade yourself to the next piece, next piece, next piece. As soon as you finish completing one piece, and you can finish learning or you can keep learning as much as you want and whatever you want.
Hmm. Great. In fact, that is also something that I think a while back I was also interested in, because the games have such a profound impact in children, and it has got that social connect also. They would like to play together, and many of these games are either puzzles, physics based, or there could be, you could explain a lot of things, history, and the way people used to live and things like that through the games. It would require a transformational change for the educations to be kind of even gamified or transformed through these games, whether it be levels, whether it be the in-game experiences, the points that you collect, and the path that you want to choose. You might want, you will have, like, at every point you have multiple paths to choose your credits from.
Yeah,
If you want to, like, go down that path, get some extra points, come back and then continue. It's all up to the students at that point. um, yeah, so yeah, it's a
and
very wonderful idea.
And imagine if there is a leaderboard, just like you have in fitness first, no? Where the people who are having the most number of points. So each level you complete, and more number of levels that you have completed, you get over the leaderboard. So if you want to bring in the element of competition, because that actually pushes you forward, whether it is in games, that is a core element as well, but in a healthy way. So you got to figure out how you can uh, bring in the element of competition. Gamified Gamification is the process that I'm talking about, and they have taken only one element of gamification, which is scoring marks right now. That I feel in exams or schools, and in structure of, oh, I moved from first to second, oh, I moved from second to third standard, or third or fourth, and then you're very surprised when somebody who is 12-year-old has completed university. You're like, wow! But there are so many kids possibly who can do it, but who have been held back because of the system. Because of the system. because they're part of the system and they don't have the access or they don't have the connections or they are not met the right kind of people or whatever that may be, So it has to be something that is completely reimagined, I would say, in terms of the pace at which a child wants to go. And I can feel that it's coming very soon because kids are seeing they don't have to uh, go through 12 years of schooling to make money. They can do it on YouTube, they can do it on other platforms, they can do it in different ways of doing business. Entrepreneurship has exploded right now. So very soon this system is going to collapse. And I think and the number of uh, avenues where it is out there where you can do these things is immense. So it just needs more and more advocates or people who are willing to experiment or a model that is shown to parents and say, here is a model where your child can be successful as early as possible. We'll have the community feel, we'll have the experience of going through a school and building relationships and doing all of those things. And at the same time, having the learning pieces and at the same time, growing as an individual, all these things coming together. It will take time. It's not something that somebody can come in and measure very quickly, also, which is why it's a challenge. I think Sadhguru has this school, Isha Foundation, and I've heard this. I cannot validate this, but I've heard what he does is he tells parents, if you want your child to be enrolled, he has to be enrolled at a very very young age, which means kindergarten, whatever that age is. And he says there will be no exams. Number one. Number two, don't ask for certificates. You won't get them. Number three, the child has to go through 12 years. After that, you can take the child out of the system. But the child has to remain in the system for the next 12 years, which means the child has to go through the whole functions of what the Gurukul has. It's kind of a Gurukul, where you have yoga, you eat healthy, everything is plays a piece. It cannot be just that you come to school, you do something, and then you go back to junk food and you go back to video games and you go back to a different culture back home. That's why I said the parents have a huge role to play if we're going to make it a day scholar program, where their lifestyle and their living has to also evolve and change. If the child is going back to that environment, because that environment plays a huge role. Otherwise, it has to be a boarding school like what Isha does, and then a hostel where the child is completely immersed over there. So the environment plays a huge role in the conditioning of the mind of the child and how what we can create or what we can offer and how we can do these things. It's, uh, it's like I said, it has to be rethink, rethought. What would you say if you were to reimagine education for, let's say, your daughter, or if you had to think of something new, or if you wanted this whole education sphere to be different, do you have from your technology experience perspective of how learning and everything is done or implemented or adopted a new way of how education could be reimagined?
I mean, in some ways, I can see a lot of innovation that are happening right now because recently I got a report which kind of gives a 360-degree view, of the child. Uh, but again, I felt that a bit of some of the answers are templates. The reason why it is a template is it has to be done for so many children in such a short time. But having said that, things are moving slowly towards that direction, which is something that I can experience and feel. But having said that, I really don't think that technology is being used really well. Being a technologist myself, and that requires that mindset change of. And I sometimes feel that as parents or teachers, we had to go through this kind of courses ourselves and then question, is this the way? So I take courses in Coursera and other online platforms. So that makes me think, how can I do this? In fact, forget about Coursera. The other day we were watching YouTube video. Actually, it is from Nebula on minute body. It's about our different things, and it's like 1 minute videos, and she was enjoying it really well. Yeah, and when it was informative for me also. So we kind of finished the entire series because it's only like 20, 30 videos, in that. And and these things makes us question, what is the best way to do things, how are these platforms to be utilized in the right way. And I almost said that, like, okay, now you have finished your biology class. So there are lots of creative stuff out there. There are lots of ways we can assemble things and then create an experience that is enjoyable for all parties, including the teachers. And figuring that out, it may not be like one solution that fits everyone, and that's also very important. Um Figuring out a solution that makes learning natural and what is enjoyable, and that's the challenge that every teacher has to solve for their class. Every school has to solve for their children or students, and probably like every board, every system of education has to figure out how we have to do it. And and keep in mind that, I keep telling one thing, especially when it comes to business, of course, of enterprise applications and things like that. If we standardize it too much, if we say that there is a best way to do things, we'll never figure out another, even better way of doing things.
Hmm.
So so it's a journey, right? Now that we have reached in 2023, with all the tools and facilities and the technology and stuff like that around us, we need to find out what makes sense in 2023 for education, and are we using it to the fullest potential, and do we have even freedom to do that.
Hmm.
And if we keep that mindset, in 2024 there could be something different, something better, and goes on like that. And we keep adapting and changing and making sure that the children are learning to their best. And yeah, I mean, there is no reason. In fact, getting a job, as soon as we, graduated, was a big thing, in late 90s, for many people, because the whole concept at that point in time was to, graduate, go for job hunting, apply, and buy the, classifieds opportunities and things like that.
Yeah.
And today the children are preparing for their careers well into their, education period. So as you said, the children are getting smarter. They are more privileged. They are more capable of doing things early on in their, in their life. And sometimes, that needs to be recognized, and we need to facilitate children to choose, their, I mean, or experience. Forget about choosing. They need to experience different parts of life, while they were still learning and doing things.
Yeah. And the reason why they're more equipped is because they have more tools at their hands. They have more tools at their disposal. I mean, if I had a psychometric test that I could have done before I did my engineering, I would have definitely identified. I'm not saying, see, me finishing engineering made me realize anyone can learn anything, I mean, pass through anything or, go through anything. It's not impossible. Even rocket science, to get marks and to finish the concepts and to go through a stage by stage process, I think almost anyone can figure things out a little bit at least. If you don't understand it in 100% entirety. And in any given class, there will be students who just understand the basics, meaning 40, 50%, and there will be those who will score 70, 80, those about 90 maybe, right? But end of the day, who cares? Like, you get the certificate, you're all treated the same. But only depending on, what organizations you might join and all that stuff, your competence and your computer, how you can actually deliver will be tested. And when you get into these things, technology will help you so much so that you don't make those errors also. And then you have the support system of other people and employees and all that stuff that will actually help you mitigate the errors. There will be systems and processes in place. Uh, so yes, it is a given that they have more tools and they're able to make better decisions and they're able to go ahead and do things more effectively. Also, It was our generation, and I guess the previous generation, which had this concept of get out of college and go make a living. I feel there would definitely be a group over here who are completely confused what to do. They are also concerned about making a living. But the majority are conscious students or teenagers or youngsters right now these days who know exactly what they want to do. And they are not thinking about retirement. They are not going to be thinking about it's something that if you're doing it passionately and if you're doing it with uh, because of the learning mindset where you said right now about your daughter and you watching that on Nebula and all that stuff, right? And it was very interesting. And I was thinking, what makes certain subjects interesting to us and what makes certain subjects boring to us? And if we find also it could be the way it is presented, it could be the concept itself, it could be how we are gravitating towards it. And it depends on how as parents we figure this out. I was watching a video this morning where a grandparent was saying, in the olden days when children came to us, there was a child, my grandson would come to me and he would bring the toy and say, Papa, Papa, my wheel has broken. Oh, is it? He said he would take it and put it in the trash. And then slowly the lips will go down like this, the child's. And then say, what happened? He said, I think I can fix it. He said, okay. And then he'll take it and give it to the child. And then the child will take, and then the child, after a few minutes, would have fixed the wheel of the car. And then the he says, he's just, wow, that's wonderful. How did you do it? Easy, easy. No, 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 no. It is amazing. Tell me how you did it. And he would make the child vocalize and say, what did the child do to fix it? And that would reinforce for the child what was working for the child. Not it's not about the car. It's about changing the mechanism of how to operate in the mind that the grandfather was facilitating for the child. And he was using this as an example and saying how to have this conversation with the child where you actually empower the child to think about how to do it different next time or approach problems. So from a young age, when the child realizes that it has the opportunity to fix things and do things, these days he says what happens? The child will go to the father and mother and say, oh, the wheel is broken. The father will immediately, oh, don't worry, beta, I'll fix it for you. And then the father will go and start fixing the whole thing and takes away the capability that the child can build, robs the child of the opportunity to actually build skill sets by doing things for the child. And I found that pretty fascinating how the old ways were not crystallized and defined right now, like how we are talking. It was all embedded in their way of being because it was community living. It was about realizing that, we all are there for each other. Now it's only I am there for you. There's nobody else for you. I am your father and mother, and that's it. We are only on us, and we are the only people that you have in your life who's going to take care of you. And they have that sense of ownership. They have that sense of feeling that I have to do everything that is possible for my child so that my child does not face the loss of not having other people.
Mm. Anyway, so we'll wait
Yeah.
for the future to come where things would be a lot more
So,
interesting.
future. Tomorrow is another day. What do you think, or what do you want? Where do you want this thread to move into? You have something that you.
I don't know. Tomorrow is another day. So we got time to think and rethink.
Yeah, but we spoke about education today. Let's say if we were to rethink how offices work, how the corporate culture is maybe.
Yeah,
No?
we could. We can.
Possible. All right. So,
See you then. Yeah. Bye.
tomorrow, see ya.